Wife cheated, got pregnant. We have 2 kids already. I need some advice. What would you do? Have you been in a situation like this? I don't even know what I'm looking for in posting this. But Reddit is a place I go to find nuggets of great advice. So I'm looking for that on this post. Just some human to human honesty. It's a long one. A movie at this point. I 31M have been together with my wife 34F for 9 years, married for 4. We have 2 children 7 years and 11 years. I adopted our oldest around 4 years ago as well. But raised and was a part of his life since he was 1.5 years. All the puke, stepping in Legos, riding bikes. That's my boy essentially. Last year January my wife started a part-time serving job at night and started going out with her coworkers at the local bars and their houses 1 to 3 times a week after work. Sometimes for an hour or 2 after closing time, sometimes until 3 a.m. She also had another part-time job during the day for 4 to 5 hours. I worked a 50-hour work week at a remote work-from-home job. Since my job was much more flexible, I took the kids to and from school, helped with homework and class projects. I carried most of the slack on their sports or doctor's appointments, as I had more flexibility, but we both shared these 2 tasks. I also worked on my side business at night after bedtimes, that I built from the ground up. I'm proud of, and it's definitely my passion and dream. During late spring/early summer my wife started working more at the night serving job and less at the part-time day job. Which meant she was also frequenting the bars and going out with her coworkers more. I voiced my concern quite a bit but always was met with the kids are already asleep, I'm just going out with my coworkers. I would bring up activities we could do, games, painting, hanging out, things you would want to do with your wife. It was more convenient to just hang with the people she was already with. Fast forward a few months towards the end of the summer. More late nights, new friends I've never met, schedule changes. My wife comes to me with, hey, I'm developing a schoolgirl crush with a coworker, I feel silly about it, there's nothing to worry about, I just wanted to let you know and make you aware. We can call the coworker Fred now, feeling secure in my marriage, love of my life for 8 years, mother of my children. Been through a third of my life with her. Know her so much. I say something along the lines of, thank you for coming to me, the honesty is appreciated. You work with a guy, we are married, we've been together for 8 years. I trust you in our relationship and it would make sense that eventually someone would get a feeling like this, we are only human. Like that's pretty dumb but no biggie, thanks for the honesty. I approached it with compassion and probably a chunk of naivety at this point. I told her that it was dumb but it's all okay and I trust her, you are just coworkers, and even joked and said go get coffee with the guy, you work with him a lot anyway. Maybe she would see the schoolgirl crush as dumb and shake it off. Say to herself, what am I doing? My husband is my man sort of thing. Boy, was I wrong. Fast forward a month or so. Same going out to the bars behaviors. I'm dropping off and picking up the kids, I'm cooking dinners, doing bedtimes alone. I get let go from my day job and it was a unique job that allowed me freedom to take care of the kids, take time off, and it paid fairly well for my profession. I decided to put more effort into my business and went full-time into it. I was making about the same amount at my side business as my old day job at this point. Even more by double some months too. I was ecstatic. But working hard day and night and staying focused to keep the bills paid. Everything has been split 60-40, me paying a bit more most of our relationship. We were 20-year-olds having kids. I wasn't in a position to pay for a family of 4 off of 1 or 2 jobs with my skill set. She very desperately wanted me to pay for everything so she could stay home, and still does. It's just really hard to make enough for her to stay home in this economy and our skill sets. I only can work 2 jobs realistically. 1 month she was going to visit her friend on the West Coast for a week. Everything was normal and seemed fine, and when she came back from the trip we went to a concert and I felt something was a little off because I saw she was texting one of her old exes again. She hasn't talked to this guy for years, and it was becoming this constant thing I was noticing. I confronted her about it and she said she had met him on the West Coast trip in passing at a concert her and her friends went to. So they reconnected and started talking again. At this point I was definitely concerned. And was questioning how this trip really went. I never went through her phone our entire relationship. But I had a chance to one day and I had this gut feeling. I looked through her phone and found out she cheated on me with one of her girlfriend's friend. Some dude she just met for a day or 2 and slept with him. I see texts back and forth from him and her that were talking about what they did and how great it was, not a care in the world, and she was loving the praise and attention from this guy. I also find a text thread with her planning a hotel night with Fred that same week she came back from that trip. If not one hookup was enough, she wanted 2? A ruse that she was going to give me about being at her girlfriend's house party too drunk to drive home, so she had to stay the night. There was also more texts between other dudes about wanting to hang out or meet up for drinks, etc. Sure, let's make a date, I'll check if my babysitter is free. Apparently I'm the babysitter. At this point I felt struck. I mean hit with a train, spikes thrown at my body, dragged through hot lava. Absolutely enraged. I couldn't process it, I was in utter disbelief. If you are wondering, our Seg's life was damn amazing in the beginning. We were an amazing pair sexually, but the last 3 years of the relationship it was fairly dead. I would have to beg for sex and would be lucky to get 1 to 2 times a month. I married a girl with a matching sex drive to me, which is fairly high. But hers decreased a bunch after kid 2. And I was the only one initiating and trying to be segs and show that I wanted her in that way. When I saw her next, I confronted her. She seemed shocked I found out and was pissed I went through her phone. Later find out there was more I missed too in Snapchat. She didn't cry right away or act how I would expect. She didn't throw herself at me crying. She was just looking sad and shocked. It took a few days for me to really see her break down and see that she probably effed up the marriage forever. I tried to sort through all the pain, hurt, betrayal, confusion, point of origin, hatred, love, depth. You name it. It was a rocky feeling weeks mentally. The depression started kicking in, but that's my wife. And in the end I tried my absolute best to see the good in her and just try to make it work for the sake of our kids. The home. The marriage. I tried to be the better man. I told her, don't stay at your friends, let's try and work this out. I hate you because of the betrayal, but I love you because everything else we've been through. We even slept in the same bed that night too. Is this trauma bond? The next part happens within a few weeks. From when I found out in July to August, all hell broke loose. I will take some blame here on this next section because my mental psyche was completely compromised and I was not operating as a functional human mentally. At this point, I was broken. Or at least that's how it feels. We decided to do an open relationship test run. Stupid move. It was a shiny new thing that sounded good on paper. We made rules/an agreement and she went on a date with Fred. I tried to be mostly supportive and open to the initial idea. Who knows, might work out for both of us at this point. She comes home and tells me about the night. It was a simple date with him, her and a group of friends. But I realized right there I'm never going to have time to chase another girl and raise kids and build my business. I was blinded by the idea, but it made no sense in hindsight. But it would work great for her and her schedule. At this point I'm drowning for something to make sense. I'm flopping around like a fish trying to breathe and figure everything out. One night I asked her to hang with me besides watch TV, something to the effect of helping me do a menial task that would take an hour or so. No, she wasn't into it and would rather watch TV. I snapped. I said sure, whatever. I felt the care and love disappear. I felt the depression and numbness overcome me. It felt like when Anakin turned into Darth Vader. I felt vengeful, I felt hatred, I felt the poison of revenge just totally engulf me. I felt depressed. I felt like I wasted my life away for someone. Adopted her son, worked 2 jobs. How could she do something like this to me? I worked 2 jobs for 5 years and tried my best to provide as a young father of 2. I gave everything. My all. I bled for this family day in and day out and adopted her son. I signed papers to always be responsible for another man's child and to love him forever. But the poison just hit me. How can she do that to me and how can I handle this? Life didn't seem real anymore. I hopped on Tinder and found the easiest girl and planned a date/possible hookup if things went okay. I skipped a chunk of the rules/agreement of the open relationship and wasn't honest in what I was doing or my intentions of the night. I meet the Tinder girl at a bar and hit it off a bit, but at this point I could care less about looks or the conversations or anything. I just was filed by this numbness and worthlessness to feel what my wife did to me. Feel how easy she could do it to me. I was numb. I let go. We went to a secluded place and hooked up. Wife had my location on and brought the kids out at 2 a.m. to catch me up in the act. Who brings their kids out at 2 a.m. into unknown situations? Absolutely insanity. She hit me multiple times and tried to beat me. She threw who knows what from her trunk at my head and clocked me pretty good a few times. I didn't touch her, or fight back. I was dazed and in shock. My wife makes me drive the girl I met back to her car with my kids and my wife in the backseat. Nice move. Let's traumatize the kids, right? She makes me sleep in a hotel for a few nights, throws all my C all over the house, threatens to destroy all my business gear. Screams, punches, throws everything at me. In my head I'm thinking, man, what the F was I thinking to do something like that? But I also realized, when she cheated on me, I was pissed but calm and reasonable. We slept in the same bed the night I confronted her. I yelled a bit, but didn't make her leave the house. I didn't take all her C and throw it around. She was showing me that she couldn't handle the same thing she just dealt to me. And she was being so cruel and evil to me. I get back in the house and it's days of violence. Me trying to keep the peace and explaining that I'm feeling broken, depressed and hurt, that she would do that to me and the way that she responded when I did the same thing back. No, what I did was worse. I should have been the better man and not cheated back. Even though we were open. It was my fault and I'm the slime of the earth. All things she kept saying to me. Making me seem like the scummy villain. A terrible excuse for a husband and awful human for cheating back on her. All the while we only got to this place because she cheated on me. She didn't want to see that she made me into this shell of a man and all of this was happening so fast. What was the rush? Why did all of this fall apart so fast? There was something else that was affecting this rushy open relationship. A few days after this my wife finds out she's pregnant. We were now in tornado panic mode. Everything is spinning in our world. We find out that she is pregnant. With a doctor's visit shortly after this, we find out it lines up perfectly to her week trip out west. It was the dude she met and effed out there. I know this because we didn't have sex the week before or after her trip. It's not an excuse for her behavior, but the pregnancy hormones could have been why she was so intense when she caught me. Even when we were technically in an open relationship. I just skipped some rules. Hell, she broke the entire marriage vow when she cheated. Even so, she bounced the idea of keeping this guy's baby, and I specifically said to her, "It's your body, you need to make this decision, I don't want to sway you anyway. That is your body, not mine." I made this clear many times. One day she asked me what I would do if she kept this man's baby. And I responded honestly, "I don't know if I can handle raising another man's baby that you cheated on me with after a week." She decided to get an abortion. Even at the clinic I said, "Do you want to go home? You don't have to do this, and it's your body. Seriously. This is an important thing, we can just go home." Yes, she asked me to drive her to the clinic. She was going to have Fred drive her. She almost instantly regretted the decision a day or so later. She wanted to keep that man's baby, and she made me feel like I forced her to choose to abort. August to December were the worst months of my life. Worse than watching my mother slowly die of stage 4 cancer. It was a terrible time. Constant fights, and trauma, and her throwing my stuff outside and begging me to leave, but then telling me to fight for her? Going back and forth on what she wanted. She would get physical with me and punch me in the face some days. Men can't report domestic violence that shows weakness. She would take the kids away for weekends or weeks. She even tried to take them from me on Christmas Eve. She did, but brought them back at night. Utter pain and chaos. Then came the ultimatum. She regretted not keeping the baby and said, "I'm not willing to work on our relationship unless you give me a baby." She wouldn't even entertain the idea of fixing the marriage first unless she was pregnant first. I'm not insane, am I? That's not normal, right? We're not well-off people, lower middle class at best. Always one full-time job and a part-time job or two for me. And a part-time or two for her. We make it each month but have no savings or retirement, etc. etc. I know after all of this, having another child is finically the stupidest thing we could do. And then on top of all this pain and betrayal, the last thing I want is to have a child with the women who cheated on me. It sounds so selfish and one-sided. Our kids we have now deserve as much care and attention we can give them with the little resources we have. I can't work 90 hours a week and be okay. I know I don't have the mental, emotional, financial, and temporal bandwidth for another child. But I know she wants another to fill the void she is from losing the other. But I feel like that's not my fault or obligation to give her another kid just because she cheated and had one with another dude and she decided to abort. Now she feels the need to have another? I don't feel like that should fall on me. That's not right to put the entire marriage on a selfish one after all of this. It's been 6 months since this happened. And we are more amicable and somewhat peaceful when conversing now. Both hurt. Still in pain. But living under the same roof. I want to be there for my kids every day. That's my number one now. It used to be my wife, the kids, and myself last. But now it's the kids, myself and my wife last. I want to be there every day for them like I have been the past 10 years. I adopted her son as my own and she wants to take them away for an at best situation of 50-50 split custody. I love these kids so much and I know they will be broken without dad. They're growing up. Sure, 50% is better than nothing, but it's tough. Am I crazy for still tossing the idea of just giving in to what my wife wants? Am I insane for still wanting this marriage to work? I think about it and sometimes feel like a weak man who just wants his kids. I want peace, not more headaches, but another baby sounds so intense right now. But we're definitely at the defining fork in the road. There is no more straight path, a decision has to be made. Give her a child and save the marriage for my children. Working even more hours to stay afloat knowing I'm doing it all for my kids and a wife who cheated on me and I cheated back? Do I just give in and give her little dream of a baby to keep my family? Or walk away with my peace? Knowing that I tried my best to make it work. But knowing life will be 10,000% harder raising 2 kids in separate households. I'll still have to work double hours or find some magic job that can afford 2 kids and a single dad in this economy. I don't have much of a friend network or any family here. I'd pretty much be on my own. I don't know Reddit. I'm just a 1 in a billion human being just like you. Going through a different experience. I thought I'd share this. Any advice, clarity, perspective, story, is appreciated. I have a gut feeling of what I should do and choose myself and my happiness/peace. It's just tough. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Found flirty texts between my wife and her gynecologist who claimed she had cancer. I faked working late, snuck into his office and caught them in the act, recorded everything. My wife and I have been together for about 11 years. While we did have a bit of a gap, we hit it off well. She was in college, and I was interning. We met up, working together. After she graduated, I asked her to marry me, and then, of course, even though it had been about 3 years, she said yes. To say it was the best night of my life is an understatement. It truly was. When we married 8 years ago, I thought it would be perfect. We danced, sang, and were merry. She smiled from ear to ear, and that night, it felt like the start of our lives. And, of course, the start of the hell I was put through. My wife's always had health issues, especially when it comes to reproductive health. At first, it started with some aches and pains, and eventually, it turned into major issues with her uterus. Doctors told us that having a kid was out of the question, which was a little disappointing, but I accepted it because I loved her so much. We moved into a new house, a huge, stately place with more than enough for us. She got mad at me because she thought I was trying to push the kid thing again, but I insisted that was definitely not the case. I just wanted a life together that we could share and be happy with. My wife and I worked well together, and I was happy to have her. However, this also led to other strange goings on. The first was that she started spending less time around me. She was out a lot, and I always wondered where she was going. She would come home late, and sometimes, when we talked, it felt like there were walls. She insisted that she loved me. I wanted to believe her. She means the world to me, and I want that for both of us. Then came another bomb that was dropped. The cancer scare. My wife started having pains once again. We even got her surgery to help with this, removing part of her reproductive system. However, cysts were found, and she was referred to a specialist to help with these problems. I figured it would be nothing. Maybe she's just having some issues. She started seeing another person, and they claimed it was a possible tumor. Now I'm worried as hell. My wife might have cancer. We've dealt with a couple of serious situations involving her reproductive health. But I never thought it would be cancer. My wife encouraged me to see this specialist. I thought fine, maybe I should. We get in, and my wife starts acting overly friendly and very sweet with him. A complete 180 from the distant woman I've dealt with up to this point. Something seems up, and I can't put my finger on it. But I dismiss those thoughts. Maybe my wife is just being nice to him. But she told me afterward that she'd have a few appointments to treat this and that she'd go alone. At the time, I was working long hours at a desk job. I didn't want to do this, but I said sure. Maybe my wife's treatment will go faster. So, she started the treatment. However, I always thought that the hours were strange. She would go in the afternoon and would stay till well after most businesses closed. I asked her about this, and my wife said that he preferred to see her after their patients since the treatment involved medicine and chemotherapy to help with the possible tumor. I thought, sure, maybe that's it. She got the treatment, and for 2 months, I did everything I could to help my wife, even with my desk job. I prepared dinner and cleaned up the whole 9 yards. But my wife still stayed aloof and didn't seem as open towards me as before. This was beginning to get ridiculous. I wasn't exactly sure what was happening, but she shied away from my touches and didn't want anything to do with me at times. 2 months passed. I thought my wife would be all cleared by now, but the doctor insisted that she come in. The treatments continued. Something was up, however. He was seeing my wife during this time, and my wife never had any of the symptoms of chemotherapy. It got weird when I noticed she still had all of her hair. I asked about it, to which she responded that it was a new type of treatment and that she was fortunate to try it. I dismissed this once more. Clearly, my wife didn't want to get into it. I, of course, wished I could shake these thoughts. However, they continued bothering me, eating away like a festering wound. I wanted to believe that it was nothing but just my imagination. That was until I saw the texts. My wife asked me to grab something in the bedroom for her. I walked in, and her phone buzzed. Curiosity got the better of me, much to my dismay, and I looked down at it. It was the gynecologist, Dr. Roth. However, the messages were not appropriate for the business he was in, especially with my wife. The flirty text sat there, mocking me. She told me how he would keep this up to keep seeing her. She mentioned that I was a fool and that I didn't catch on to their affair. Anger boiled within. I didn't want to bring it up just yet. I loved my wife, and if I asked her now, she might try to refute it. I knew the best way to fix this cheating mess would be to catch them in the act. Which is exactly what I did. I set it up so that I would be home late the next time she had an appointment. I told my wife this, and her eyes lit up, which disgusted me. She wasn't even trying to hide it. She wanted me to catch them in the act. It made the pain of this even harder. On the day of, I drove over to the gynecologist's office. There was but one light on, and I knew it was them. I stepped inside. The door was open. I heard sounds. I walked closer, and that's when I heard it. Your husband fell for the cancer scare. My wife gloated, saying that he did. She mentioned he was gullible and so easy to use for whatever perverse reason she could. I wanted to throw up. I held onto the doorknob, listening to their conversation. I waited until I heard sounds, and that's when I made my move. I opened the door, catching her gynecologist between her legs, and my wife looked so happy. Anger boiled within me as I called them out. My wife stared in shock, but she never denied it. In fact, she seemed to think she did nothing wrong. I loved you. I thought you felt the same way. That's when my wife dropped the ball. She's hated me for a long time. Dr. Roth treated her like the woman she wanted to be, and since then, they've been planning a future together. I saw red. In fact, I don't think red is the only color I saw. I wanted to lash out, to punch him, but I didn't. Instead, I asked him why he did this. He said it wouldn't affect his practice and that what people don't know won't hurt them. That's when I pulled it out. The recorder I had. I set it up initially to catch anything, especially if my wife denied it. I told him that he would pay, and he'd regret what he'd done.